Hello? You've been fooled! I knew it the entire time. It was for engagement stats. I muted myself for your chat messages. That's free engagement. Get wrecked, idiots. Hi. I'm Brad. Um, hey. This is just a chill stream today. It's a Q&A stream. I've said in the past that I would do this at least once a month. Um, Uh, it's also at a good time because I haven't been posting many videos this month. There's a few reasons for that. Busy with full-time work, but it's also like kind of quiet. I mean, what it was quiet most of this month, except for like 1 week that it's always how it is. Like it's always super quiet, and then all of a sudden, like there's always 1 week that just everything explodes, and you're like, oh, I guess I gotta come back out of retirement and plaster information. But yeah, it's a Q&A stream. That's all I gotta say. But before we go on, there's a few things I want to like kind of show off for people that haven't seen yet. So this is bradsmells.com, and we have a new link right here. Very fancy link. You click it, and it goes to a website called Sadly in Reality. Wow. That's such a good name. SadlyInReality.com. Who could have thought of that? It's because like we're sad to be in reality. Okay, anyway. So there's something I've kind of noticed. I'm sure a lot of people who watch my channel or like constantly watch news VR channels, there tends to be a lot of and I'm okay, let me first say I'm very happy that I put myself in the position where this happens, but let me explain a little bit more. So I do a lot of research and work and things I will post on a video usually in the past will get regurgitated through other channels, which I'm totally happy about. The issue is sometimes they don't get the points that I want to be made more clearly when this information is regurgitated from a video. So I got really kind of tired of that. For example, the biggest example was, me and my team of nerds, we spent like a whole night data mining Steam VR, right? It was like a lot of work. We were super excited about what we found and everything. But then I tweeted a new patent related that Valve applied for in December of last year, and all the news organizations instead of talking about the video, like 20-minute video about the data mine, they're like, "Oh, this patent was applied late last year. That must mean Valve is still working on a headset." And I'm literally there pulling out my hair with these things in the freaking code. And I'm like, please, guys. So what I decided to do to make it easier in the regurgitation process is I wanted to make a actual news website of my own, just to have as it be the basis for if things are if I'm gonna find something new like a data mine or a leak like this. I want people, and because some people don't want to watch 20-minute videos, I get that, especially when I'm very tired and sound exhausted and I'm just talking for talking head, and they don't want to take the time to write notes. Just take it off of this, if you make a video. And also allows me as well to go even deeper than I usually can in videos, because videos are very complicated for multiple reasons. One, I gotta usually do an outline of the important topics and then kind of talk, and there might be some translation and misunderstanding of voice compared to just writing text down. So something for a data mine, it's better just to write everything down than do a video. That doesn't mean I'm stopping doing videos. What my plan is, even though it hasn't happened yet, was I want to do the super deep dives on my news website here, and then everything that I find important, I will translate it into a video after for people who don't like reading, because Some people don't like watching videos, but they like reading things. Some people are the opposite. So I'm trying to cut the middleman out completely and become too powerful. So yeah. Get it? Cool. Um oh my god, upcoming Quest hardware updates. I know, that's funny because probably my next article is unironically Simulia did there was a new firmware for Quest, and Simulia did a lot of data mining already. And yeah, he's very nice, that person. He basically doesn't want any social media to himself. So he just like is like, take all the information I data mined and you can do an article. So I'll be able to do a data mine of the stuff that he found on my website, and then people can regurgitate that. But it was funny because a lot of stuff in this article, which was a Patreon news article, a lot of the updates that I said were gonna happen soon have already been happening now. For example, like the be able to have Horizon Home and like invite friends to visit people. That was like showcased literally like 3 weeks after this post where I said that was gonna be like the next update. So that's cool. It's cool. Anyway, yeah. Hey BMF, hey everyone. All right, so yeah, so really let's just take the moment to say, if you have any questions about Deckard, Cambria, or any of the meta prototypes, that was a weird set of videos. I'm sure by now people have seen what Meta did like almost a week and a half ago, where they just like showed off a visual Turing test of different concepts, which that day when I saw that Meta did that, I literally spent that whole day like kind of sulking a little bit. I'm like, these are like all the things I've been researching in white papers that I spent the last year trying to figure out what concepts are being worked on and how. And then they just like dumped all of that years worth of research in a video. I don't know. It was a weird thing, but yeah. Cool. I like reading and watching more Brad and more formats, and yeah, it just gives me more control over my content. Because another issue when you're like in a position where you're like a leaker or whatever, I don't know if I guess I'm a leaker. Um, Leakers have a lot of their name on the line for things. If you get something wrong, or let's say someone regurgitates your information, but they regurgitated it incorrectly, but they still put your name in that regurgitation. Well, then that person, that audience might be spreading something that I never said. And if it ends up not being true, even though I never said it, that person, yeah, it's a very complicated thing. I will get stuff wrong, but yeah, I need more control over this stuff. Yeah. What meta prototype impressed you the most? Probably none of them. Okay, no, that's not fair. They were all very cool, but they were things again that I kind of knew about, and like I was happy to see what they looked like in like actual prototype form, like the different concepts. But really, I think the biggest one to see that was most exciting was the HoloCake. Um, which this is not the this is do I have a holo? Yeah, the HoloCake. Um, this one was most exciting to me because it seems like the one that's actually the most likely to become productized first, if that makes sense. I literally wrote a these are two articles that talk about Mirror Lake, which is a concept. It's not a prototype. It's a concept for a prototype that Meta wants to build. But I take a lot of the prototypes and discussions about the technologies and like where companies are that I've seen, and how they can potentially reach this goal of a Mirror Lake in like production form. The one thing about Meta's thing that I personally believe, which I'm sure most people would agree, is not only was the prototype dump kind of strange, just that they did it, but they're not gonna show their true hand, right? Like that. They're not gonna do that. They're gonna keep the stuff they're probably working on close to their chest. And you know, this was just a PR stunt and a weird one at that. So yeah. Do you think Holo HoloCake. HoloCake 2 is the Cambria? No. I don't know actually. It's very complicated. So HoloCake, what HoloCake is, just to give you a heads up what HoloCake is. HoloCake, the only thing they're really doing is they're using a special lens stack. We've talked a lot about Pancake lenses on this channel. And Pancake lenses basically, okay, here's a great I love that I have this. So this was a slide at SID of this year. This was presented by LG, and they were talking about OLED micro displays. And they were showing all the different lenses for VR and AR that consumer companies are looking at. We've talked mostly about this kind of Pancake lenses, which are like the most standard kind. They have a very either thick piece of glass or plastic here, but they're still way thinner and way more comfortable than Fresnel. And what HoloCake does is instead of having this big chunk of plastic or glass, which would usually be doing all like the bouncing of light and stuff, they replace it with a holographic stack of films, which, you know, films, those are like super thin, right? Super light, which allows them to even get it thinner, but also way less because, you know, glass and plastic chunks are always going to have a little bit more weight than films. The issue with, and again, I go into detail. If you're really interested, like the nitty gritty of details, I recommend both of these articles. The issue is with HoloCake 2, they had a huge emphasis on laser backlight LCDs. And there's the reason why is holographic films and holographic lenses, they are they're very particular about the incidence angle, which is the angle of light that they can accept. And lasers, I wish I had my laser pointer here. I don't. Lasers are very collimated light, so they're very like an actual string of light, right? That's why lasers can point so far, because the light is actually just going in one place. So they're very good theoretically for a HoloCake lens design. LED type sources, which are like OLED or you know, any LED, including like mini LED backlights, they throw their light pretty much everywhere, like in huge ginormous cones up to like maybe 180 degrees. That's called Lambertian light. So the issue is that light, not only is it losing a lot of efficiency, it's hard to get that light passing through the holographic films to begin with. So they have to figure out how to collimate those kind of light sources first. I think there are ways to do it. I'm not, again, I've talked about that a lot in these articles about like ways to do it. And there's actually different types of holographic optical elements. There's ones that use liquid crystals to dope them to allow them, and you can just see the difference of like how much more angle the liquid crystal type can accept between the other kind. So sorry, very long answer, but I get really interested. I love this kind of stuff. Sadly in reality articles are great. Thank you. Welcome to Media Engagement 101. Yes, yes. Yeah, so like every prototype they've shown of HoloCake, they've shown two different prototypes, by the way. HoloCake 2 was the one that you guys all saw recently. It's actually full color. I think they use like red, green, blue lasers backlit onto LCD panels. That's what they say. But they also shown HoloCake 1 years ago. This is what HoloCake 1 looked like. This was like a monochrome, like green laser LCD. It was like kind of thrown together. The interesting thing, I really find this very interesting. that they are looking like they're trying to productize this thing. I mean, that looks very much, that's much for that's a they call it research prototype, but I imagine this is just something they're very interested in doing. But the one thing about this article, which was posted in June of 2020, is Ars Technica, when they confirmed from their own sources that knew a lot about Deckard that I was not insane. They said that I was on the right track about what kind of optics Valve was looking into using for their next headset. And not only that, they literally pointed to documents about what kind of lenses that they were using. And guess what that link takes you to? They literally take you to the HoloCake 1 research paper. So it's not something that Meta only has. I believe that the entire industry is looking to get this. And my guess is they're probably doping these holographic films with liquid crystals. They're called LCHOEs, liquid crystal hose. So, yeah. Yeah. The only thing missing is one of those pop-ups on the site that ask you for your email and then spam you. We have an RSS page if you want to be spammed. We have RSS feeds, so if you have like an app that accepts that, you'll get the instant notification and full thing. But there's only 4 articles. These articles are just really long to write, so there won't be spams for sure. What do you mean when they weren't showing their full hand? Well, again, I don't expect them to take laser backlit LCDs too seriously for productization. I don't see that going anywhere. Just like how they won't obviously get they won't get a 20,000 nits brightness display by packing in, I forget what kind of bulbs they're using, but they're like using giant studio light bulbs packed into that one HDR headset. Like they're you just gotta remember there's research and there's productization. Everything they've shown us was research. They didn't show us anything related to productization. But you can see hints in what they're working on and what things they are likely to productize first, is what I'm saying. So, yeah. Why, in your opinion, did Meta spill the beans on all their research? I don't know. A lot of people were saying that they're trying to hire people, but The Verge literally wrote today, and this is not The Verge, but this is just a quick article I know to easily find, that, so this is mix.de that re-reported The Verge, and basically there was a leaked memo within Meta, the higher up, saying to people working in all the divisions that they're focusing on Metaverse, but don't expect, like they were saying, you've been getting a lot of influx of new employees that can help you with what you're working on. Don't expect that anymore. They are slowing that down immensely, the hiring stuff. And we were already hearing kind of talks about that. Just their business is down, their stock is down. We're kind of recession period a little bit, so there is like hiring freezes in a lot of industries. But yeah, I don't really think they published that to hire people. I don't know why they posted it, actually. I don't know. The biggest thing that was really, like, I get it. It's cool to show off prototypes. They've shown off prototypes many times before, usually during Meta Connects or Oculus Connects or whatever they call it. But this was the weirdest thing to me that they've shown off. They've shown off literally a concept, not a research prototype, a research concept of a device they would like to exist one day. And why I don't think it's like too strange, but it's a little weird because they're like showing they want to put like reverse pass-through displays on it, which is something that everyone is saying the rumored Apple headset is going to have. So I don't know if this is like something they're nervous about an upcoming headset and they just want to show that, hey, we did this first or whatever. I really don't know. I have no idea. But it was cool to see what kind of stuff they're looking into. Another interesting thing that also people never really talked about is it seems they're actually rotating the displays in this headset, like here, just like a patent I saw from Valve about how they want to increase, especially the vertical FOV of displays by rotating it a little bit and like rendering the composition with that rotation in mind. It's actually there's actually strings in the SteamVR code that support that patent as well. So it wouldn't surprise me that this is something that multiple companies do to get a little bit more edge out of these smaller displays for FOV. So it was cool to see that in like a prototype sort of thing. So yeah. How seriously do you think holographic lenses are for the future? Like how far? I mean, I really think it's something that it's not that far compared to everything else. So the way I think things are going is I think higher resolution will be the easiest thing to get first. Like of all those four prototypes, higher FOV or not higher FOV. That's not no, not higher FOV. Higher pixels per degree. That is just that's not a problem, I think. I think the displays are getting super high resolution, super fast. That's not an issue. And I think second behind that is these HoloCake lenses. Like I think it's very important to these companies to get that done. Maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, within the next 2 to 3 years, I could see that happening. But yeah, I think so. But they'd be really expensive. Remember, these are expensive things to make. They will not be like in low-end Quest 3 if they do come out within that time period. And again, that's my estimate. They would be expensive tier stuff, like Apple $3,000 stuff, you know? Yeah. I have a question about the Deckard. In a video I saw from you, which you updated in November 2021, you were pretty certain you would see an announcement of the Deckard next year. Do you still think there's gonna be an announcement of the Deckard this year? I don't know. I honestly don't know. When I made a prediction about the time frame we'll see the Deckard, I was honestly very stupid to make a prediction in the first place. I was still pretty kind of new at doing this kind of stuff in general. Valve is a very difficult company to predict timelines for more than any other company. And generally predicting timelines for hardware is already difficult. But Valve in particular, because the supply chain, the easiest way to find leaks about how far a headset is in production is the supply chain. But these people that are usually supply chain analysts, they are usually focused on the big companies like Apple or Meta. Like they can give you an estimate of when you'll see Cambria in the Apple headset because they literally know people that work at these companies that tell them, "Oh, Apple just filed a huge order for Pancake lenses or something, right?" They're due by this time period. So, but for Valve, they're a pretty small company in comparison. So all I have is data mining. That's all I have. And not only that, is the data mines that I get are all purposely released by Valve. They do this as like a free marketing, organic marketing thing. A lot of companies do this, but Valve is like especially known for this. So when I see stuff like this, for example, and like I see references to a like a Deckard dev kit in the code as well. They literally leaked strings. Where is it? Dev. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, it's Deckard dev tools. They're leaking strings related to Deckard dev tools in SteamVR. When you start seeing stuff like that, you can't help but feel it's close, but I could never give you a good estimate. I am with you all in when is this thing coming out? So, yeah. When will my father be back with the milk? When mine gets back. I think it's been 27 years. When do you plan to add? I have the Deckard deep. This is the deep dive that I recommend. It goes even further than my video did recently. I posted like a week and a half ago. This one is a Oh, or unless you mean like an overview of everything. Yeah, I will have like actual roundups of every headset, like predictions on like specs and stuff on the website. But for now, all I have is this. But this still gives you a lot of information of what I believe the Deckard is. So for now, just read all of this. I will get it up as soon as I can. It's just it takes a long time for me to get all this stuff out there. So um, you're a leaker. You know you can get special pants. All right, PD. All right, PD. I am really behind on questions. Sorry about that. Could you talk about Meta's Mirror Lake? I can talk a little bit about it. It's just again, it's a concept. They're still like trying to show off laser backlit LCDs. Again, I don't think that's gonna go anywhere anytime soon. There's a lot of issues that have to be solved with lasers in particular. Not even just the cost, but like they produce a lot of just different issues. I think one reason why they might be like interested in lasers is because you can you can use lasers for like waveguides theoretically, which would help their AR glasses type thing. Like a transitional technology sort of situation, probably. But I don't see it for useful for VR compared to other technologies, and I don't even think they do too. But again, yeah, it just has it has electronic varifocal. It's got lens inserts for prescription. I did a whole thing about how they do eye tracking, by the way, in my article. So if you're very curious why the cameras are here for the eye tracking rather than in the lens, I literally go into long detail about that. And again, it's another type of holographic film that can enable this. It's very cool technology. I'm not sure how soon we're gonna see that though. I think that's probably not. I mean, it's possible, but the issue is when you start adding all of these holographic films, you are adding a layer that is going to take away a wavelength of light, um, or at least like brightness levels, because they're all kind of like polarization based, and polarizers take away a lot of light. And that's why you'll not see like a 20K to your eyes, 20,000 nits to your eyes, which again is not dangerous. Not dangerous. My room right now is probably more than 20,000 nits right now, like to my eye. But yeah, you have to add like duty cycle, which is like they flash the display to remove all motion artifacting, and that takes away that's 10% effective brightness off of 20K already, for example. So that is like 2,000, and then a lot of optics like HoloCake are around 10% efficient, if they're even that. So then you're getting 200 nits to the eye, which is about average light you're getting with today's headsets. Like they're around 100 to 200 nits to the eye. Um, that prototype was 20K nits to the eye. So that is like the thing we won't see for a long time. That's the last concept we'll see, something as bright as that. The reason why they're very interested in super bright displays like that reaching your eye is because for AR, like AR glasses, you need even more brightness than VR, because you are fighting. If you want to take your optical AR glasses outside, you gotta make sure that bright is super super bright, because when the light reaches your eyes after all the math that's done taking away the light, it's got to fight with sunlight. It's got to fight with the sunlight bouncing off of like sidewalks, which is super bright already. Like, it's a huge problem. So that's probably why they're like exploring a lot of these laser type stuff. I think, but yeah. What about holographic cameras? I honestly don't know anything about that, so I can't. I don't know. There are things I don't know, and there are things I probably mess up when I write these articles, but I really try to make sure I get everything as best as I understand it. But I don't know anything about holographic cameras. Sorry. What are your thoughts What are your thoughts on the Metaverse Standards Forum? I don't have thoughts on. Yeah. Do you feel like any of the founding members will steal information and try to author their own version and become a sole proprietor? I don't have any opinions on those on the Metaverse Standards Forum. It just seems like another committee that will just bicker with each other. Um, the problem is like I don't know how something like that gets successful because it would have to. I don't think there's gonna be like one metaverse ever. I think there's gonna be a bunch of metaverses if they if they still continue to call it that in the future. But I don't know how they align all their principles. All these companies align their principles if they're all wanting to work on their own thing. Like every company's gonna have their own cloud gaming service, for example. Um, and you know they're all. I don't know. It's a lot more. It's a lot more difficult, I think, than like the Open XR consortium, which are more about like, hey, let's make this easy for developers in our small, still kind of small industry to develop a standard that everything can build for. Whereas the metaverse thing, from what I understand, just seems like let's make rules and let's make all metaverses follow these rules. And if you don't follow these rules, I don't know. I could be just taking it wrong. I just don't think it's. I don't know. It just sounded like a buzzword sort of group, but I don't know. Maybe wrong. None of what FRL has worked on over the last 8 years have ever been productized. It feels like they're doing those just to file patents. Yeah, I think that's a problem too. Um, that's another thing is like there's always a very big difference between research and like productization teams. And what we're seeing are research things. Um, yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about like the difference between a research and a product, but I think the main reason we haven't seen a lot of this stuff productized, from what we've been seeing for the last 7 years from the research teams, is there just hasn't been a reason to competitively. Um, I'm optimistic that's gonna change soon, but yeah, it's there's just been no reason. The Quest 2 has shown that you can, as long as you have a good enough device that's cheap, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you waste all those billions of dollars on research. You can just take off the shelf things and then build something with good software and sell it. I don't know if that keeps happening, then there's never going to be a reason for research teams or research items to be productized from a company like Meta. But yeah, again, I think there's gonna be a lot more focus on the higher end to build these things because that just seems to be where things are going. It seems like everyone is very interested in the high end prosumer, um, not executive, like whatever, like Cambria and stuff, you know. They timed VRPR to deflect layoffs. That's probably true. I mean, Meta as a company right now is like very big in the news. Okay. First of all, their stuff is leaking like way too much. Like I feel like every week there's a new leak that makes the company look bad. So there's definitely employees within Meta that are pissed off at what's going on. My guess is they're pissed off about the stock going down because a lot of these Silicon Valley companies, they give you bonuses which are like stocks awarded to you. So let's say you retire from Meta. The idea is you'll have a very comfy paycheck retiring because you've been awarded so much stock over the many years you work there. Well, those bonus incentives of staying are pretty worthless when your stock tanks literally 50% in like a year. So I don't know. I think there's like some disgruntled stuff going on there, which is why there's so many leaks. Like even this one, like I have to say, like I'm happy that I got to do this, but like I'm still am shocked that something like this got out, you know? Like that is just, yeah, it's crazy. So Oh yeah, hit the thumbs up, by the way, right now. Okay. How does AR reprojection technology work? Well, it's the same as VR reprojection, which reprojection is like kind of like taking frames and like either translating them or rotating them. It's just a lot of tricks done to a frame. Like for example, if your head is moving only left to right without turning, they don't need to render a new frame. They can just take that frame and know they gotta translate that X value. That's like a very simple version of how reprojection works. And AR reprojection is just like, you're not obviously reprojecting real life. I don't think. Well, maybe it's complicated with pass-through AR. I don't know how it works for pass-through AR, but it's still the same concept with VR, but you're reprojecting the overlays, the digital overlays, I believe, is how that stuff works. I read both articles, but it was confusing. It was a bit confusing how the eye tracking works with holographic lenses. So again, the basic thing you need to understand is most eye tracking uses IR. They beam IR into your eyeballs, and that IR bounces toward the cameras, which are usually. So for example, this is the HTC Vive Pro Eye. They have IR being emitted around the lenses, but the actual camera are inside the lens housing, like kind of down here pointing up toward your eyes. And that camera can see the IR dots in your pupil, which your pupil's like super expanded because it's very dark in a VR headset. Which again, that's another reason why even a headset feels bright to you, they're not that bright. It's just your eyes are expanded, pupil expanded because it's so dark in the eye and it feels bright. But yeah, but this basically takes that concept to the next level. This hologram would allow visible light, which light is just wavelengths. Like colors are different wavelengths of light. And IR is like a higher wavelength. So this hologram would basically let the visible light pass through it. But the IR light being reflected from your eyes would be bounced toward the cameras, bounced off from your eyes to the cameras, is from what I understand. Because that's kind of how it's or it's like kind of like a waveguide, like they can push the IR into the side where the camera can see or something like that. That's kind of the basis of how it works. It's just directing the IR toward the camera, which is behind you. So yeah, that kind of makes sense. It's just the one wavelength of light. That's the one thing about holograms that are really powerful, and they feel like they're cheating the laws of physics, is because they are thin films that it doesn't matter. Like you can add a power to a hologram without changing the size of the film. It's totally independent of the size, which is very strange as a concept for the laws of physics. But they can control like how that light goes, how much of it is being pushed or bounced or whatever. So like they can increase the power and I guess assume decrease the power too of those IR being bounced. So yeah. Zuckerberg said on a tested video they are having power efficiency issues with HoloCake. Oh, I'm glad you asked this question. So Cambria will use Pancake lenses, but not holo display. Hi, Lucas. I'm glad you're here. Yes, I'm glad. Oh man, I've been wanting to talk about this actually. So let's talk about mini LEDs a little bit. So Cambria is using a mini LED display with some sort of pancake. Probably we'll just assume that it's normal pancake, which is like about 30% efficient on average. Taking this number, I guess I should come back here. We're just gonna assume it's this, right? But you still need very bright displays for something like this number compared to Fresnel, which most of the light is passing through Fresnel. 90%, 80 to 90%. I mean, that's not difficult at all for displays, but 25% or lower, You still need very bright displays, right, Matt? For sure. Um, so what's happening for mini LEDs in particular? Mini LEDs are not hard to get bright, actually. That's one reason why mini LEDs are being chosen right now by Meta, is because you can push the backlight to be way bright. Is the power efficiency good? It can be, but there's one technology that I see catching on very, very powerful right now for XR, especially for mini LEDs, is they're called micro lens arrays. So they can build a backlight with these mini LEDs, but also they can layer either a thin film or like a bunch of little tiny Fresnel lenses, and they can actually develop the Fresnel lenses to direction that light more to where they want that light to go. Because again, even mini LEDs, which are still giving off Lambertian light, most of that light is going everywhere, scattering. You want to direct that light to collimate it more, and you can even like, let's say it's on the edge of this display here. Well, if you can like point it this way toward the eye better, you can direct that light with these little micro lens arrays. So not only does it give more efficiency without adding any power, because again, these micro lens arrays are basically like little tiny Fresnel lenses. They're very efficient. They collimate the light, so it actually gives you more nits of light, because nits of light has nothing to do with the luminance of light, which that's very confusing. Like, what is luminance? Well, that's like how bright a light bulb is, right? Nits is like basically like the pressure of light coming out. So if you have, it's like if you had a water hose and you put like a little attachment to like direct that water hose to a thin stream. The water pressure is super strong, but the same amount of water is like for the most part coming out still, right, of the faucet. Same concept, but for light. So I wouldn't be surprised if like Cambria, even though it's like maybe not using HoloCake optics, they're able to boost the light a lot out backlights with these directional backlights using micro lens arrays. Very big topic. You're gonna hear about it. You're already hearing about micro lens arrays even for large TVs. Large TVs cannot get that huge benefit. There was an article, SID article written in 2019 by Sony, where they were they were building micro lens arrays into OLED micro display stacks, and the beginning nits before they added those micro lenses was about 1,500 nits. Then they added that layer. They were able to get 5,000 nits just by adding those micro lens arrays and like directing the light the way they wanted it. That's like a 3 times improvement. That's very, very impressive. TVs cannot get something that crazy for micro lens arrays, because when you add these lens arrays, because you're directing the light to one place, the viewing angle becomes much smaller, which for TVs you don't want that, because you're packing people into a room. You want to be able to see the same quality on your OLED TV from the side rather than just having to be directly in the center. But for XR devices, completely opposite. You can pack that light as thin as you want it, because it's only going to one place, and that's your eye. So very useful technology for VR and AR. And it's super cool. Like once you read about this stuff and you're like, oh, that makes so much sense. Why displays in XR can do things that TV displays just aren't going to be able to ever. It's like, oh, it makes so much sense. Yes, I love it. But yeah, again, just adding a layer of lenslets onto displays, no power is increased, but efficiency is increased a lot. And then you talk about, okay, well, we also have to figure out how to make displays brighter in general. And a big thing I've talked about a lot on this channel for OLED is micro OLED displays are generally white OLED with white with red, blue, and green color filters on top. And those color filters are basically taking 70% of the light away, or the nits away. So if you find a way to mass produce OLED micro displays without those color filters, you're still using the same power, but you're getting way more light through. So it's all about increasing the efficiency of displays rather than adding more power to displays to push the brightness out. So yeah. Photonics are cool. Yeah. Um, will the new Meta headset have a Sweet Baby's Ray or Sweet Baby Ray's dispenser? It better. Um, it better. The prototype reveal felt more like investor bait. Yeah, I felt that too. Yeah. Um, hey Brad, any hope of an XR Gen 2? XR2 Gen 2 in Cambria? From what I've heard is XR2 Gen 2, or like the actual full big successor for XR2, was slated for like late next year, I've heard. So everything we've heard about Cambria is it's still using, it might be using like a very tweaked, like a smally tweaked version of XR2, which is why even in my article I kind of say, um, even my Cambria article I kind of say like, what did I say? XR2 Gen 1 Plus or something. XR2 Plus Gen 1. Yeah, we've seen like interest in like tweaking it a little bit. Like and for example, they're gonna have like 12 gigabytes of, from what I hear, and like I've seen from import logs, it suggests that Cambria might have 12 gigabytes of DDR5 or LPDDR5 RAM compared to the 6 gigabytes of LPDDR4X RAM in the Quest 2. But yeah, still XR2 Gen 1 from what I hear, but it might be like slightly tweaked, and they're giving, they're gonna be able to clock it better and stuff. But yeah, I'm personally not impressed with the fact that they have to stick with this SoC, even with more RAM. It's probably why that they're having to stick with like resolutions like this as well. But that's just kind of the way they are. And they're packing a ton of cameras in this thing too, which that's, you know, a lot of bandwidth, in general. Are you telling me that you work for Valve? I do not work for Valve. I've only spoken with a Valve employee like a couple times and like very just minute things. To be honest, I have no idea how Valve feels about me. Uh, I'm sure. I mean, Valve is a many people, but I don't know the general consensus of how they feel about me. But yeah, I hope they've always been pretty nice to me. Whenever I have like asked them questions or whatever. So I don't know, but for the most part, yeah, I have no connections with really Valve, just a few messages here and there. I believe that Pancake lens is. Oh, why did that just skip? Frick. I lost this question. I believe. Okay. I believe that Pancake lenses are more difficult to increase with FOV. Correct. It's not really the Pancake lens. Okay, well, yeah, and yes and no. So the big benefit of Pancake lenses is they can get the display even closer to your face. Which, just like the index has the highest FOV when you get the display closer to your face. But you don't. But it's complicated because with Pancake lenses, you usually want to use much smaller displays than the one that's in the index. The index has like a 3.5-inch diagonal display, for example. Um, Whereas for a lot of these displays, they're going around like 2.1-inch diagonals. The highest FOV displays, which I would like to point out, like the Pimax, for example. The Pimax is like super simple technology. Honestly, they just take a super ridiculously wide panels, and then like they make a super wide Fresnel or a spheric lens, and that's super simple. You can't really do that with Pancake lenses. I guess you could, but it'd be super expensive and super not worth it, I think. But yeah, it is generally like it's it's got its upsides and downsides. The biggest downside I think for Pancake lenses, but it's also the upside, is it's very inefficient with light. But that is gonna make I see people who are like, oh man, why is the industry switching to Pancake lenses? Like I want brighter, I want more light to my eye, or I want higher FOV. But I'm telling you guys, I mean, I might be different than your opinions, but when you guys try some of these Pancake lens headsets, even Cambria, you're gonna be like, wow, so comfortable, so comfortable compared to what we've been dealing with for the past 6 years. So I'm very bullish on these type like HoloCake or Pancake. I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it for me. Do you have new information? I don't know about what. There's evidence suggesting that all links are intentional. Well, yeah, not all links are intentional, but I think it comes to Valve. Like again, everything here, everything in this data mine. That's I mean, it's been all over the internet for like 2 weeks now. Everything in there is still in the code, so Valve doesn't care. Valve doesn't care who finds this stuff. Uh, they're leaks that are intentional. Um, and they're really good leaks. I mean, it's cool stuff. I'm gonna skip down because I want to answer more recent questions. If I skipped your question earlier in the chat, just repost it so I can get to it. I am sure Valve loves you. I'm sure that they love I'm giving them free publicity. But I don't know. There's probably some things I've said that, or like maybe some things I've figured out that I probably shouldn't have figured out, and that makes them not so happy. Like I have been asked before if I had access to a repo that I wasn't supposed to. Like they literally thought that someone within Valve broke NDA and was feeding secrets to me about stuff. I don't know if that means I got too close to something they didn't want me to get too close to, but yeah, there was like a fear. And I mean everyone knows that I really respect Valve and their hardware stuff. I think their priorities align with mine a lot of the time on what they do and accomplish, which is why I always want to talk. I get when this like for example, when we were data mining this and all this stuff was in the code, I swear to God, this was like Christmas morning for me. Like I get a great joy out of this because it's not about the fact that like, oh hey, I'm gonna be able to share this. I get excited because I'm like, oh man, maybe I'll be able to buy my own Deckard soon. Maybe this is gonna happen for me. Like I'm a consumer like all of you. I'm a Valve shill. So yeah. How much is it going to be, the Deckard? I expect the Valve Deckard to be expensive. It's not gonna be Quest 2 price. Do you think this tends to mean that FOV is unlikely to increase much for Cambria? Cambria is not gonna have much increase of FOV. I think we're gonna see a lot of vertical FOV increases. Or okay, when I say a lot, I mean a bit. But I think FOVs. Hey, did you notice, guys, that they gave 4 different Turing tests at Meta, right? 4 different Turing tests. It was HDR, resolution, uh, optical distortions, and varifocal. There's no FOV in those 4. And honestly, I get it. Because once you increase the FOV, well now you gotta increase the display pixels per degree even more. And there's a lot of issues. Once you increase the FOV, you need even more stuff for optical distortion correction. When you increase the FOV, it's even harder to have solid state varifocal lenses because those solid state varifocal lenses, the bigger they are, the slower they are in activating. So FOV adds a lot of issues for these other technologies. Will we have lower FOV? I think they're at least trying to get the baseline of like what index is, for example. But yeah, FOV seems like a very okay. Yeah, FOV is great. I get it. I get it. Super cool. Have extremely wide FOV. But if I could sacrifice FOV for varifocal, like 40 to 60 pixels per degree, super thin form factors, all these things, I can deal with the FOV on the index today, for sure. If I had all those things, I mean, I'm sure anyone would. But FOV is just like an easy thing to get, like to understand in your brain. Like wider FOV, oh, I get it. But honestly, your actual how do I say this? Your retinal resolution gets very blurry the further FOV you're out. Oh, and that's another thing. If you have wider FOV, you need to render even more. You can cull less of the geometry and like it's a problem. It's a very difficult problem. That's in VR. For AR, oh god. AR is even worse. Holy frick. Sorry. What are your thoughts on retinal? I saw direct retinal, like lasers into the eyes. I think he was talking about. There was a story recently about how an Apple employee apparently had to go to the hospital because they were doing stuff with lasers directly into the eye and something went horribly wrong. And this is at Apple, the company that everyone says always has the magic technology or whatever. Yeah, I don't have much to say about it because I think it's still very far away. It's not a safe technology. And I don't if it's not even safe in prototype form, I don't know how they're gonna get it. And I don't know. I'm not very I'm very skeptical on direct laser into your eyeballs. Very skeptical about that. Are we going to wait for holographic optics to see So, T-Rex, if you watch my video, that is actually kind of a type of holographic optical element. It's the liquid crystal kind. So, you know, again, I talked again, check out this part 2 if you're very interested in all of that. But there was another cool thing at SID Display Week this year. This was a presentation that was sponsored by Meta and like Microsoft and a few other companies. And it was the professor of Creel, which is the Central Florida Photonics, very, very big photonics college. A lot of the graduates from this lenses and photonics college are all going to Apple and Meta to work on these type of lenses, by the way. But they showed all the different use cases you can have for these liquid crystal or liquid crystal polymer films. And one of them was resolution density doubling. Stuff we've been talking about. So it's literally just a type of these things. There's a lot of different use cases you can use for these technologies. So that's why I think it's a very valuable technology to research. Is because there's so many different. Oh, and here's beam shaping as well, which is also kind of like micro lens array type stuff. But yeah, very, very useful technology to research because there's so many different use cases to add, and if you can improve it over time and get more capabilities out of it. Varifocal is another type of liquid crystal thing. So very, very I love this stuff. I love it. I love this stuff. Very cool. What is expensive? I don't know I don't know how expensive Deckard is gonna be, guys, but I think it's gonna be high tier again, high end tier. I don't expect it to be. I think a lot of headsets are gonna be high end tier from these large companies. I don't expect. I don't expect too many companies to release Quest 2 competitors. Maybe like some like except Pico or like Amazon or something like that. But like I think the race to the bottom is especially we're now talking about like kind of recession time for the economy. Race to the bottom is very difficult. I know people are like, well, that's what game consoles do. Yeah, but game consoles are it's very I don't know. I always have very different opinions on that, but I think everything that you're gonna see for the near future from these large companies are gonna be high end, expensive stuff, like 1500 and plus. I don't know if Deckard. I don't know how expensive Deckard's gonna be. I don't know. Do you think Cambria visuals will be on a par with Vario Aero? I think the big thing that Cambria is going to accomplish for against their competition is it's going to be super comfortable to wear. It's going to be a pretty good mixed reality device. If you're even if you're not totally interested in like AR through VR, um, I think there's going to be some use cases that impress people once this stuff gets out there more. Um, it's gonna have full FOV tracking of controllers because the controllers have cameras to track themselves. Um, there's evidence that they're gonna allow DisplayPort through cable. That there's strings in the Quest firmware that say that, and then they have this weird loop near the USB port. And it's gonna have eye and face tracking. Like it's gonna be a very well-rounded device. Whereas the Aero, I love the people of Vario, but the Aero is still not. It's kind of sacrificing some things. Like it's got amazing visual quality, but it doesn't have like audio built in and stuff, and like it still kind of feels a little bit like an enterprise product, without the subscription. Whereas this is gonna be like, oh, we're gonna try to do everything we can in one standalone device, even if it's expensive, which I think is more consumer reliable for most people than Aero. But time will tell, I guess. So the visuals for Cambria are probably gonna still be pretty nice, even if it's not like high resolution as Aero, which I think that's the one thing that is really suffering in this device, to be honest, is like everyone's saying in the supply chain that the resolution is going to be 2160 by 2160 per eye, which is still okay. I mean, it's got mini LED and stuff, but if they want people to work in a headset, and that's what they call this the Chromebook for the face. People are gonna be more productive. They're gonna do coding and stuff in a headset like this. I don't see that happening with a resolution like that, honestly, because you want at least what I hear people, and even Carl Guttag was said this to me. 40 pixels per degree is the number you really want to hit, like genuinely. And this is not going to be near that for sure. Maybe 23 pixels per degree or something. So, and pixels per degree is even more important when it comes to text reading and comfort for that. So, I I don't know. I think it's the big issue with is the resolution, but I think it's still probably gonna look good. Did you ever go deeper into that? I'm so glad you reminded me. Okay. Um, just to let you guys know, even though I have not been posting videos, I was very excited to go on to I actually watch this channel a lot. Moore's Law is Dead. He is a silicon. He's basically me, but instead of VR, he does everything related to silicon, like GPUs, CPUs, AMD, Intel, Nvidia. And we got to do he invited me to do a show with him. And it was really fun. Not only just to be on the show, he's very very nice guy. And we talked about Little Phoenix a bit. But it was really fun to like talk to him about the concept of what I believe Deckard is. And he was kind of like he wasn't like very skeptical. He didn't really know much about Deckard because he doesn't follow the VR stuff. But when I explained to him the concept of what I think Deckard is, he just like light bulbed immediately during this stream, and you can see his face like, oh, that makes so much, and like he gets it, and he's even excited for the concept, right? So it's like it was very cool to be able to do that, like on his show or whatever. So yeah, it's on his channel. Moore's Law is Dead, Broken Silicon 159, and we talk all about that. Because basically, if you don't understand what we're talking about, there was a leak that he found like a week and a half ago that AMD is starting to work on a Van Gogh 2. Which, if you don't know what Van Gogh is, ow. It's the processor inside of the Steam Deck right here. And they're working on the second generation. This uses Zen 2 and RDNA 2, which are architectures that AMD makes. Little Phoenix is going to be, and this is on 7 nanometer node, TSMC 7 N7P or whatever, or N7. Little Phoenix is going to be Zen 4 and RDNA 3, and is built on 5 nanometer. Huge improvements in efficiency and power and everything. And he first contacted me because his people were saying that'd be perfect in the Deckard compute unit and stuff. So yeah, that's AMD's working on a Van Gogh successor. So it's very interesting, when you think about Deckard. Do you think the Pimax 12K QLED will be the real deal? I think the Pimax 12K QLED will exist, but not this year. I think it might exist. I think it might exist next year, like mid to late next year, from what I hear. But the problem with the 12K QLED it's kind of a unicorn, and I'm actually honestly more excited about the Pimax Crystal, than I am about the 12K QLED. I think the Crystal is a product that they should have honestly announced. I think, okay, how do I put this? I don't have much to say, but I think the Crystal is like a product that makes more sense, and is actually possible to release this year, and will give a better showing of whether the 12K QLED is possible. But even with that, the issue I had with the 12K QLED was they were showing all these attachments that would make it the holy golden grail of VR headsets, right? But those attachments don't come with the base unit, and you don't know when those attachments are coming out. In fact, they didn't even like mention them during the Crystal announcement, right? So you have to kind of pick apart what the 12K QLED is. It's a super bulky display packed in with huge optics. And then they're putting fans. They're putting, like XR2 for now, in that thing. It's gonna be pretty front heavy, like really, really front heavy, I think, compared to their current headsets, which are already like hammerheads on the face. So I don't know. I'm not sure if it's gonna be cool. I think it's gonna be really cool to see it. But I think if like something like the Deckard came out, or even a lot of these Pancake headsets are like all being released, I'm very curious how many people are going to be switching to something like that for $2,400. I don't know. And Pimax is just such a confusing company. I don't know why they don't just focus on one product. Like, focus on one product, make it amazing, and get it out there. Instead, they always gotta like confuse people. They gotta have a crappy website, crappy marketing scheme. Hey, we're gonna show it to people at CES. We're not showing it at CES, and we're not gonna talk about it for 6 months after CES. Like, I don't know. That company just makes me always feel so weird. So weird. Steam Deck is great, but that's exactly what I'm weighing for Steam Deck 2. Next gen CPU and GPU will be much better fit. Yeah, I agree. Honestly, for everyone I know who has a Steam Deck, they're very happy with it. I've not heard one person that's complained about this thing, and you know, it runs games pretty well. Um, I got to play Horizon Zero Dawn on this thing, which is super cool to be able to play on a handheld in bed. And even though it doesn't reach 60 FPS, like I'm kind of accustomed to, it gets for what it is. I'm pretty impressed with the hardware itself. But yeah, it definitely could. It definitely would be nice to have a more powerful chip. Because yeah, not much else to say. Is Cambria native PCR VR input is still not increased? So again, all we know about the PCVR wired thing for Cambria is apparently they're including a wire clip on the side, which would be clearly meant for a USB-C cable to route through. And we found a lot of stuff related to display link in the Meta Quest firmware. Which every update we see mostly for Meta Quest firmware is all related to getting stuff ready for Cambria. By the way, again, I'm gonna write an article about this, but they're really getting those Meta accounts ready. Like they're getting really close to Meta accounts. I'm not sure if they might save the Meta accounts release for Meta Connect in like a month or two, or was it July? Like maybe 2 months. But like all the backend systems for Meta accounts are very and I even said in this before we saw the data mining that Meta accounts are like a big priority. So yeah. Pimax confirmed WiGig module and Lighthouse module for launch. MR module is later. That's the way they should focus on. I really I would be shocked if many people even buy a mixed reality module for Pimax compared to the other modules. But Lighthouse module makes very much sense for their enthusiast people. WiGig makes even more sense for sure. WiGig, I think more people should be looking into the WiGig stuff for PCVR. I know it's like just another R&D thing to throw on there, but like I think WiGig is very, very important for a lot of these devices coming out. That's the one thing I like actually really respect Pimax for doing is like actually focusing on WiGig. So good on them for that. If Deckard comes soon and it is like you predict, that's another thing. I hope I'm right on a lot of things for the Deckard. I mean, I would be honestly pretty heartbroken if like I spent like this much time predicting the specs for Deckard based on all this research and then not get it right. But I don't know. I'm still pretty confident on that. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard to guess. I'm very sure that Valve at least was the company that kicked off the design for the 4K display. Like that is like something I'm 500% sure. But then there's also the possibility that hey, they might have kicked off the design of that display, but they might not actually use it. So that's a fear of mine, you know. You never know that might happen. But from what I heard straight from the people's mouths, is the company's still interested in using that display. So yeah, but even then, I trust Valve. They know what they're doing more than I do. I'm just some guy who who does my best to research these technologies, but Valve is a company that has their own prototyping labs. They have all their own. They know what they need to make. So, but yeah. What odd PC game do you wish there was a VR mod for? Dota 2, actually. uh yeah, so I really like Dota 2. Um I've always thought it'd be fun if you could, even if it wasn't like a real serious game, to be able to play all the different heroes in Dota 2 in like a first-person VR thing. That's not gonna happen, but yeah, that'd be interesting. Um, I don't know. I love all this. I don't know. I feel like every game I've been interested in trying in VR or have to be ported in VR has already been done. The PCVR community of modders are amazing, and they just keep modding games to work with VR. It's insane how fast and how many games they've done already. Valve like to launch a hardware with software together. Will Valve make a new game or what? I don't know, because Tyler said something really so Tyler McGregor said something really true on his stream yesterday, and I really like how he said it. So I leave all the Valve software stuff to Tyler McVicker. He does all that stuff. I'll everything he says, I would just repeat, basically, because I don't spend any time on Valve games. I spend time on the hardware. So me and him actually have a really good working relationship, because if I focus purely on the hardware and he focus on the software, then like, it benefits us both. But also, he just to repeat what he's been saying, he says that Citadel is like the next game that Valve is making. It's like a weird hybrid VR and PC game, apparently. But they're also working on like an actual other title, like a full VR title. Actually, a couple of them. He said like one of them's called like HLX, which is like Half-Life X, which is like some sort of either sequel or something to Half-Life Alyx. And then more recently, he found something called Pulse, which is some sort of space game for VR, and they can like generate ginormous environments in Source 2 and stuff. So Valve's still working on VR software. As far as I don't think Valve cares about. I think they would like to release new content with new hardware, but I think we've seen with the Index, they were originally planning to launch Half-Life Alyx with the Index. Actually, I don't know if you know that, but they were originally planning to announce Half-Life Alyx the same day they announced the Index. That unfortunately didn't happen, because there's a whole backstory with Half-Life Alyx that the game had to be delayed like a whole other year. But because they were trying to be competitive with Oculus at the time, because Oculus was getting ready to launch the first Quest and the Rift S, they just said, screw it, we got to get this thing out there. So they announced the Index just to have, at the timing they felt was important to compete with the Oculus hardware at the time. So I think Valve would like to release new software, but I don't think that is what dictates their hardware releases, if that makes sense. I think they'll just release it when the time is right. They feel the time is right for the hardware. Are you the Tyler McVicker of hardware? Uh, um, I guess so, but I know Tyler really like uses it as a meme, but Valve once released a press statement calling him a passionate gamer, right? He said, oh, he doesn't. Just to paraphrase, Valve like made a whole thing about how Tyler doesn't have any inside information about what Valve works on and stuff, and then they called him the famous quote, "passionate gamer," and he takes it with stride, and I love it. I do not want to be called a passionate hardware lover by Valve. Please never. That would be That would kill me. That'd be terrible. I feel like that would be absolutely devastating. Like, oh my God. I don't know what I am. I guess you can call me Tyler McVicker of VR hardware. Um, yeah. It's very weird because software links are very different, I feel like, than hardware links. I think they're very different, but I am very similar because Tyler got big from data mining, and I got my process was very different. It started with patents, obsessing with patents of all things, and then it got to data mining, and then it got to supply chain, talking to supply chains and stuff. Um, and that, two of those things have nothing to do with software game leaks, but one of them does, which is the data mining. So in that aspect, yeah, yeah, very similar. Uh, yeah, hopefully not passionate about hardware. Yeah, dude, I remember when I don't want to talk too much about that, but that would just like horrify me if because Valve is a very quiet company, and if they released a statement about me, I feel like that would not be a good thing for sure. That would be like I feel like you have to piss off someone really hard at Valve for them to do something like that. So I don't want that. I still have a lot of respect for the conglomerate known as Valve. All right. How long have we been streaming? An hour and a half? Cool. We have 30 more minutes, I think. Do you think PSVR2 could work well on PC now that they make PC hardware as well? I have no expectations that PCVR2 is going to work on PCs out of the box. Zero expectation for that. That being said, knowing the modding community and what they did to hack together software that made PSVR 1 of all things work with the PC, which is still blows my mind to this day. It wouldn't surprise me if they figured it out, but I have no expectation of them to do that. I know they are having a much bigger push to bringing PlayStation software to PCs, but I think I just don't see it. I really feel like if they're going to be competitive, first of all, with the gaming side of VR, which their biggest competitor will be the Quest 2 or Quest 3 when it comes out next year. Obviously, they probably want to sell the thing at cost or something like that, right? And the only way you can recoup costs from doing something like that is from software. And they make the most of their software on their console. Which their console, by the way, if you've been having trouble getting PlayStation 5s the past couple years, I'm happy to say, from what I've been seeing myself, at least in the US, stock for being able to pre-order and buy a PS5 has gotten so much easier recently. PlayStation Direct has been having those PlayStation 5s in stock for hours. Hours. Like I think it goes 5 hours in stock after they opened up their store. So the supply chain so crypto dying has made a lot of this stuff a lot better. Things are healing. So it's very very good for people that were worried about PSVR 2 because it seemed like this stock shortage was never going to end for these hardware, but even a lot of industry analysts are saying that yeah, there's gonna be a lot more stock for this holiday season, especially for PlayStation 5s. It's gotten to the pack where companies are starting to cut orders with their silicon fabs because they're worried about having too many in stock. What a crazy industry. We go from shortage to like fears of too much stock. It's madness. But could they hack it if it really does have a virtual link style connection? Well, yeah, I think it will have like a virtual link style connection. But the problem, I don't really worry too much about the getting it connected. Like there's dongles. I think even Vario has a dongle for virtual link or something. Maybe that's not true. Might be misremembering, but I think software is something that you'll have to definitely figure out. So again, I think people will mod something together. But like for example, Tobii eye tracking, I mean that's gonna be kind of useless on a PC for the most part for now. Except for like social experience. I don't know. I'm just again, I just don't think Sony themselves are gonna push that out the gate, in my opinion. I'm very, very, very skeptical of that, but I could be wrong. I don't know anything about it. What do you think about Apple using an M2 in their HMD? Do you think it'll stay that way? Yes. For the first generation, I think M2 with Bora, which is like an A14 type chip, that those two chips working together, I think that's done. I think that's decided. No changes for that. I think that's gonna happen. Will they make XR focused chips or XR tweaked versions of M2 or something like that in the future? Maybe, but I think that the thing you have to think about is for them to do something like that, I think they would want to first get the volumes, a lot of volumes sold for the headset. I think for now, they're not expecting huge volumes. They're expecting sales of their headset, from what I hear, but they're not expecting ginormous volumes for them to like, hey, let's design a custom silicon for this. Because honestly, a lot of the stuff that is in, I mean, a lot of stuff that's in like these custom silicon already, you can see would be good for a headset. Like they focused heavily on graphics performance in the M2 over M1. You know, they have a lot of AI focused cores within these chips. So they might not ever do it, but they definitely won't do it for first generation, where they're still kind of like going to be testing the waters a bit. I think. But everything I've heard, and people are very confident about now. Like I hear people inside Meta know that this, like, really believe this headset's coming out. People in the supply chain are like, this thing is coming. This thing is coming. The people are getting serious. There's even people talking now about the second generation headset getting display fabs. LG is now building supply lines for micro OLED displays, and the main reason they're doing that, it's not going to be ready for 2024 until 2024. But the main reason they're doing that is because they're preparing for the second generation Apple headset. So when you hear all that stuff from the supply chain in all these directions, you're like, this thing is pretty much finalized. It's gonna happen, you know. Yeah. And the one thing I also said this I said this on the podcast with Moore's Law is Dead, is the funny thing about the Apple headset is it feels very similar to what my concept of the Valve headset is, where the Valve headset seems to be using an XR2 type Qualcomm chip to handle like offload camera data and processing, and then work together with the other unit attached to it, the other chip, which might be like something like a Van Gogh or Van Gogh successor to offload the task. And that's the same concept for the Apple HMD, is it has a M2 chip, probably will handle most of the heavy processing of like the application, but then there's like an ARM, they call it Bora internally. That's like an A14 type chip that just is like the XR2 for the Valve. Sounds so similar. It wouldn't surprise me, a lot of companies are going to start doing that concept of split rendering. Anything about any other players? HTC, I mean, I don't care about HTC. They're always working on new crap, but I don't care. They just released a Metaverse phone. I'm not even joking. They just released a Yeah, here it is. HTC new Metaverse phone includes crypto and NFT wallet. I don't care about this company, guys. I literally have no care in the world. So I'm not, you know, they're ridiculous. The one thing that was interesting is Ming-Chi Kuo said that Lenovo's R&D, XR R&D, is partnering with HTC, so that might help them a bit. But HTC's the big thing that HTC had in the XR industry for the past couple of years is they were dominating China. But that is not happening as much because there's a company known as ByteDance that owns Pico, and they're a Chinese company, and they're expected to overwhelmingly take over HTC's market share. And it was their bread and butter, honestly, was China. for at least consumers. So I don't pay attention to HCC because they are honestly a little bit of a depressing story for me to look at. Nreal, not much to say about Nreal. Once you know the technology behind what Nreal does, you're like, okay, yeah. Nreal popularized birdbath optics for AR. But once you realize the issues with birdbath optics for optical AR, you're like, well, there's not much they can do to improve that in the near future. So, not much to say there. Google is getting serious. They're getting serious. I can't talk about stuff I've heard yet, but yeah. Samsung, yeah, Samsung has stuff going on. I don't really know what. I know they're helping out Microsoft. Microsoft is like doing stuff, but they're doing stuff by hiring other people to do stuff. And Samsung is very involved in that. But there's a huge research. It feels like all over again, where there's a lot of hype in the industry around the VR resurgence around 2016. And there was a lot of big companies back then like saying, "Oh, we're gonna hop into this, we're gonna compete," but that died. That died back then because people realized that these headsets were huge. No one's getting the volumes that they want. But we're kind of back at the same point. The hype cycle has returned with mixed reality devices like Cambria and the Apple headset. Apple just existing just makes any company want to compete. It's very good for market value for our XR stuff. So yeah. Including the corporate sector. So I'm sorry. So you're talking about ByteDance competing with HTC in China? Yeah, because a lot of these companies are releasing high-end headsets like Cambria and ByteDance or Pico from ByteDance are also working on a Cambria competitor. And Apple is going to be making a Cambria competitor. And Valve is making a Cambria competitor or whatever. Like all these high-end headsets, which the big thing that for enterprise has been they've only been buying high-end stuff, even if they were not the best products compared to what we're seeing in the new high-end. So they're gonna I don't know what HTC is gonna do against these giant companies. HTC is not a giant company. They are not. They're far from it. I don't really know what to explain them as, but yeah. Uh, if you had to pick one, what would it be? HTC or Microsoft? Microsoft. We should be seeing very good chip advancement. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff happening in silicon processing. Very cool. Nvidia. I don't know anything about Nvidia stuff, honestly. I know people have been telling me to kind of look at it closer, but I just haven't had time to look at Nvidia stuff closer. Pico already has the biggest market share in China. See? There you go. I really want to go back to China. I actually have say what you I know it might be a very controversial thing, but my wife's from China. I've gone there a few times. I have like a 10-year visa, but due to COVID, I've never it's very hard to go there. But I would like to go back to China soon and especially see where the XR industry is over there because it feels very different. The XR industry there is very different state than the West. So yeah, speak Chinese. I cannot speak Chinese, but I always enjoy going to China. Honestly, very fun. It'd be really cool to meet up with companies there too. Like, yeah. Deckard FOV prediction, no idea. I heard somewhere the new Apple map updates will be a big. So yeah, Apple's like for their. So now Apple's focused heavily right now on the software and operating system for their headset. Um, and that means they're gonna take all the software the first party software on the iPhone, which is like maps and like FaceTime and stuff, and they're all turning that into VR, AR apps, which makes sense. Like you have to you have to have first party apps if you're releasing even if you're just releasing any consumer device, but if you're releasing an expensive device, you gotta have a good showing of first party apps, which is the one thing I think Meta's always struggled with. I can't think of like there's only one good first party Meta app, I think, that like I saw it and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's an app made by Meta, that makes sense. And it was Horizon Workrooms, the working app. And it honestly is a very basic app. All it is just they put you in a boardroom table. You can attach your laptop, keyboard, and everything in there and communicate with your working team. Like that made sense. And it looked okay. It looked good. But every other first party app that like Meta built themselves, and I'm not talking about like bought a studio to make for them because they do that too. I mean like Meta brand, Meta, it's all been pretty bad. My opinion. So, Unreal 5 development for VR. There was a cool tweet I had. I can't pull it up right now, but apparently they added support for stereo rendering for Lumite. I think it's called Lumite. That's one of their isn't that one of their like lighting things, right? I imagine that would be very intense. Oh, it was hardware accelerated. Hardware accelerated rendering for stereo, two eyes for Lumite. Or right? Lumen? Anyway, that's the only thing. I don't know anything about Unreal Engine 5, honestly though. It started with an L. It started with an L. Lumen, maybe. Um, I think the rumor about cartoony avatars might not be 100% correct for Apple avatars. I actually expect them to be very similar to Memoji, or whatever they call them. In fact, everyone's saying that. So there's three displays inside the Apple mixed reality headset. One is an LG standard OLED display. And let me just say, for a while, people were thinking that they were doing the Vario thing. They thought there was going to be two OLED micro displays in a small region and then a peripheral OLED display. But when I found out that Apple was using some sort of pancake optics, that did not make sense to me at all. So I was very skeptical of that for a long time. I was like, they must be putting that LCD display somewhere else. And then it came out that they're going to use the standard OLED display on the outside of the device, and they want to do reverse pass-through, is what they call it. Overlay your eyes outside of the display for other people to see a representation of where you're looking and stuff. Which sounds weird to us. I know everyone I've talked to in XR, they're like, that's such a waste of power. Like, well, why would you add a whole display for that? But it might be something trendy, especially if you can have like if you can. I wouldn't even expect it to be real life eyes overlaid on that. It would not surprise me if they would have like Animoji eyes, like a cartoon eyes, but that used your eye tracking to do that. That wouldn't surprise me at all if they did that, because that'd be way more simpler, I think, than getting a real life eye view that looks kind of weird on a headset. So you can have like cute little anime eyes or something. But yeah, apparently it's one thing they think is a very important feature. I would have Brad Chan eyes. I would get where's Brad? I don't have a Brad Chan image available. I would totally put Brad Chan eyes onto my thing. 100%. Yeah. All right. All the eye mods. It'd be cool. Alright, speaking of which, let me just take the moment is, if you enjoy any of my content, please go to bradsmells.com/Patreon and give me money. And like this video. I don't play ads during my streams. There's literally a pop-up right here that says, now would be a good time to insert ads. I do not do it. Alright, anyway. Back to the... let's go back to the regular scheduled broadcasting. My desktop does have Brad Chan, but you can't see it. Actually, cannot see it right now. Any thoughts for controllers? Of course you asked this, Lucas. Look at this guy. Look at this guy obsessed with haptics and gloves, asking about controllers. That's the one thing that I always find very strange is it seems like everyone's actually switching away from... Okay, well, okay. I should be very careful what I'm saying. Let's talk about varifocal for a little bit, because I think this is a very great example of why varifocal is important. I guess I don't have anything about varifocal here. So varifocal, again, that's having electronically enabled lenses that can change the focal point of your eyes, because every headset has one focal distance, and it's usually in software as well. They set it to 2 meters away, so the most clear point of vision for your eyes when you're wearing a headset is like 2 meters away. That's why every UI menu, like you go to a main menu, it always feels like 2 meters away, because a main menu is all about having text, and they want to make sure it's that perfect distance, right? But one reason why companies really want varifocal, because if you want to have stuff up close, you need to change the focal point. You need to change the focal point for that. And the one big reason why they want to change it even more so, there is a huge focus right now on controllerless hand tracking. Maybe too much. There might be too much focus. I don't know. I'm a VR user. This is good for AR. Don't get me wrong. This is very useful for AR. VR, having some sort of control inputs is good. But no matter what I care about, industry likes hand tracking. Well, the problem is, your hands do not... your hands are not 2 meters away from you, no matter what you do. Usually people, when they're looking at their hands and they're doing stuff in VR, they pick stuff up, they grab it, and they look at their hand. That hand is very close to your face. But the problem is, when things are close to your face, including your hands that you want rendered nicely, that focal distance is not matching up. So because there's a focus on hand tracking, all of a sudden they're like, frick, we need to really figure out this varifocal stuff way more, you know? But there's a huge, ridiculous focus on that. Cambria is going to be intensely focused. I think there was a string somewhere as well to where Cambria is going to enable both hand and controller at once, which, you know, for the Quest 2, you can either switch to controllers, hold controllers, or hands. Cambria looks like you can mix both for whatever thing you might do. That's cool. I like that. That might be useful for some things. But yeah, controllers are hard for VR. You can't do gloves are hard. This is the one every time, and I'm sure Lucas gets this too. Like, even though he makes gloves, he makes really cool gloves. Everyone's like, why doesn't Apple, why doesn't Meta just make gloves, haptic gloves? Why is Meta making this wristband that can feel your EMG movements and stuff? Why don't they just make gloves? If you don't think these companies are trying, like, have tried that and like wanted to figure out how to productize it, they would have done it by now. There's so many issues. People have different finger sizes, different hand sizes, and all this crap. That makes it very difficult to productize one thing that can work for every hand. It's already hard to work for every head shape, but hands are even more crazy. The fact that this can for the most part, fit on most people's hand was probably a ridiculous engineering challenge for Valve. I guarantee. Um, and even for some people, they're still not like, this thing hurts my hand. Ah, this hurts. Oh, you know. So it's a hard problem. I think controllers are going to be more focused on haptics. Like, I think what PSVR2 is doing with triggers, I think that's gonna be very beneficial. Honestly, I would like to see more controllers do that. With like, more reactive trigger stuff. I think that's very big beneficial for the near term. But for now, everyone is so focused on this. It's kind of crazy. If my hand had haptics, you'd never see me again. Yeah. Grabbing things with VR and getting them close to your face sucks anyway. Pistol puke. But also, another thing, this is nothing to do with what Verifolk or anything, but you know what's also funny about these giant bulky headsets we wear? Is sometimes you might find in a game a piece of paper you want to pick up and read, and then you like put it up to your face. Well, a lot of these headsets are like, yeah, I don't know, like this. So when you want to put it up to your eyes, you're like, oh, hit yourself in the head. Well, at least Pancake lenses will fix that problem, because you'll have a lot more space to put stuff up to you. Imagine Apple and Valve kind of elaborate on BCI attachment. BCIs are a whole other story. I was planning one day to I plan one day interview someone who's been working in the industry for a while that actually believes that stuff like Project Leia is at least possible in the next few years to be an option for consumer pricing compared to what it is now. So it'd be interesting to get his take on why he believes that. But he did like a really cool rundown of like cost of all these sensors and stuff, how they can come down in like mass volumes and stuff. It was very cool. It made me very interested in what he had to say. But do you have any rumors about the possible Valve and Apple cooperation? David Heaney of Upload VR. We both went to SID. We both went to see this 4K display in person. We both saw the word Steamboat on this board that was meant to only drive this display. But Heaney asked some more. I did not want to ask questions that would not let me get another interview ever again. So I was kind of careful about saying like, who are you working with to this company? But he flat out was like, hey, did you work with Valve to make this? And in his article, he also did a podcast on the Upload VR show, the CEO of this company said, he didn't say yes, but he didn't, he said, oh, we can't confirm or deny that, right? But then he said something really strange to David Heaney and said, but there's also a bigger company that got interested in this display later on. And I found that really interesting because I did a whole video, like this was like back in November or something. I did a whole video, crazy conspiracy research dive about how I saw a lot of connections between this display and Valve and Apple. So I was like, hey, maybe Valve wanted this display to become mass produced. And they showed it to Apple and said, hey, let's share it. Build the product lines. We both can use it. We both guarantee the volumes to make it cheaper for both of us. Let's work together to get this done. And then David Heaney asked the guy that, and he said something like that. I'm like, son of a gun. He also the CEO, when I interviewed him, I basically flat out asked them, is the company still interested in using this display? And the COO, who's he used to be the CTO, he's very involved with the technology of this stuff. He told me that yes, they're still very interested. But the CEO told me that something very interesting. He said, oh gosh, what did he say? So, oh yeah, I was saying, wow, it's really because I was asking them, can I record this? Like, can I take pictures and record this display and this board and everything? And they were like, yeah, they're totally allowing the person's totally allowing us to do this, basically, the company that made this display totally allowing us to do it. And I was like, wow, that's really cool, like special, like that doesn't that doesn't happen very often, right? And they were like, yeah, this company has been very kind to us, letting us show it to a bunch of companies and everything, because they're more interested in selling something else. They're not really interested in selling headsets. They're not going to get the huge volumes sold of the headset that they would put this display in. They're more interested in selling other things. And he gave two examples that my mind just blew up. The two examples he gave of what this company might want to sell, other than hardware and huge volumes, was software and optics. And I'm like, huh, software and optics. So like the Steam store and like the Valve Index lenses that they sold to HP and all those patents they got out of Imagine Optics. Ah, you know, so it's like you just can't help but go crazy when you hear these things. So yeah. Valve does have a long history of unusually friendly collabs to move the VR ball forward. Yeah, I mean, people don't real. I mean, I told this story. I let Jerry Ellsworth tell this story, but a lot of people don't realize that Valve and Oculus before Facebook, they were working together very closely to the point where it was actually a very bad thing for Valve. They got like almost nothing out of it because they got kind of scammed because they were too trusting. But like Valve literally built their old Valve VR prototype rooms. They built a whole other one at Oculus office for without signing any agreements or anything. And that demo, that freaking tracking demo is what Oculus demoed to Zuckerberg. And Zuckerberg bought the company, and people like Abrash that was working at Valve and a few other Valve VR hardware employees, they jumped ship a week before the Facebook announcement acquisition of Oculus. Oh my god. So I'm sure now they signed more agreements, but yeah, freaking crazy. Freaking hilarious. The dots connect themselves. I mean, yeah, that's what it feels like. Like, I know it always sounds crazy to people that don't spend every waking moment of their day looking at all. Oh, this is another cool thing. All right. Oh, okay. So what originally got me interested in this company that makes this display right here. You're not gonna believe what made me first notice the connections to this display. It was a patent. If I need to find the patent. Um, hold on. Let me get this going. This is what started all of this 4K micro OLED display. Down here. Okay. This patent was filed in 2016, March of 2016. Is called Display with Stacked Emission and Control Logic Layers. It's all about it's filed by Valve. It's filed by this man Dan Newell, which I believe is Gabe Newell's actual brother. And I'm gonna show you another cool thing about that in a minute. But it literally if you go deep, it literally talks all about the specs of this display that would be made like 3 years later and prototyped for public viewing, because they first showed off this display public or kind of publicly in 2019. So this is already like a three year old display prototype. But literally, they go in to talk about 10K nits. They talk about 4K by 4K. They talk about all these things in this thing. So when I saw literally a company, and then I started talking to Jerry Ellsworth, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we were testing Imagine displays early on for VR." Like all these connections made sense. Like Valve in this display and this company. But another cool thing, I was very curious about this Dan Newell guy. So apparently Gabe has a brother named Dan Newell. And a long time ago in the early 2000s, he founded a company known as Tangis. And what I think is really funny is they were focused on making software, like virtual assistants and software for mobile computing devices back in 2002. And they were and they even like had they even had their own software in a head-mounted display back in 2002. This Dan Newell's company guy. So even before Valve was working on VR AR, like it seems like this Dan Newell guy was already doing stuff with head-mounted displays. But look at that, isn't that beautiful? I don't know. I love that. I love this stuff. I think it's so cool. The history of things. I love when Brad remembers something he forgot to say. Yeah, it happens a lot because there's so much crap in here, but I usually like well there there's usually things I want to tell people, but I end up forgetting to tell them. But when people remind me that, oh, I actually know this already, it feels good to get it out. It just feels fun. Um, I don't mean to I don't mean to be personal. It seemed like you and Jerry hit it off. Any plans? Like, yeah, me. So I enjoyed the entire Tilt 5 team. Me and Jerry got along very well. I originally, so I went there when I was at SID Display Week. Uh, I was only planning to be there for like maybe 2 hours, get a video and go. But I talked to Jerry that entire day. We talked about a lot of topics, not just Valve, but like the state of the industry and like our opinions on organic organic marketing because I've always been very frustrated with startups, more particularly because I've been introduced to the startup culture the past couple years, where I never grew up around startup culture, and I was saying it's bizarre. And she was just telling me all her side of stuff. So and we're both very nerdy people. Like honestly, we're both very nerdy people. We're very yeah, we were just very we did hit it off very well. And maybe that's also kind of a bad thing because it'll make me hard like I like Tilt 5 a lot. I still think it's like the best AR thing out there that I've seen. But yeah, I gained like a personal connection with that team that day because it was just like I really respect these people. And it actually frustrates me that I see things in like XR startups that will go nowhere. Like honestly go nowhere, or there'll be like scams. There'll be obvious scams that make a ton of money from investors and funding. And then there's this product like Tilt 5 that like actually does something and it actually can be sold at volumes if they wanted to. But because they don't preach a unicorn amount of specs or something, they won't get um that same investment, you know? And there's things about startup culture that feel broken, and it frustrates me as someone that is also and I'm coming from the YouTuber side because every day I get emails from companies that want me to review something or they want me to make a video, and I'm like, man, just send it to me. If you send it to me and I like it, I'll make a video, I guess. But usually the way it goes is they'll contact me and they'll be like, okay, here's a contract and stipulations you must do to review our product. And they'll be like, they gotta approve. They have to approve the video before it goes up. And I see stuff like that. I'm like, that's freaking. I'm not accepting this. Are you crazy? Like I think I had to turn down a headset, an early headset review. Something that's not even announced yet, but I had to turn it down because they were so stringent on being like, yeah, we want to make sure we see the video and like it before you post this review of our hardware. And that crap happens all the freaking time with big and small companies. Is like, yeah, it's very annoying. It's very frustrating. That's why usually when I'm reviewing something, guys, I usually buy it. Like I buy stuff because I don't like having, because every time you don't buy something, there's always a stipulation usually. Like anytime like a YouTube it's never easy just to get something for free and review it, or even loan something, even loaning, even something you don't get to keep, but just loan from a company. There's always a contract that is just makes me not always turn it down. So yeah, I'm very self-funded here. Was that name unnamed headset any good? I think it would have been okay for people. That's what kills me about it. Is like it probably would have been a product. I'd be saying this is good enough for people. I can see people that would want this. But because they want to, approve a review beforehand and like add all these things, I don't want to do it anymore. So yeah, I got into like a big conversation to Jerry about like organic marketing and all this crap from my end. And she actually used to do YouTube a long time ago. Like she has a YouTube channel. You can see like from 10 years ago, she has some pretty big videos. So she experienced some of this. But yeah, it's just weird. It's weird. If they want you to produce content, they should pay you. A lot of times they don't want to pay you. Okay. That's a whole other discussion. So I have received payments for doing some videos. And if I've done a video that's paid, I usually say it's sponsored. Like for example, before I went to SID, I was trying to get money to go to SID and pay for hotel and stuff. So I did like a video, a fracked video, a gameplay video, fracked. That was just a gameplay video. There were stipulations I did not like, but I did not ask for much money at all in that video. I always feel weird taking money from developers, VR developers, because our industry is very small. Really, I don't need money. If you give me something free to use, even loan, just let me do it and review it. I did actually get something. This was very kind. I should say, I just recently got this gun stock, the ProTube gun stock, and they actually gave it to me without any stipulations. And you know what? I'm probably gonna make a video on their gun stock because they just gave it to me without stipulations. Like they didn't pay me or anything, but I can review it and I can feel comfortable doing it because I don't feel in a morally gray area, because they were very kind to give it to me. I would even send it back if they wanted me to. But yeah. But when you say like we want to approve your video, we talked too long about this. Sorry. We talked way too much long. Sorry. Got really really off track there, but yeah. Anyway. Our gun stock's good. I think there's a very set amount of people that would want a VR gun stock. I think if you're very competitive and all you play is stuff like Pavlov or Onward or whatever, I think you really do want a gun stock. But I think for the average consumer, maybe not. Maybe not. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Do you know Standard? They're the people behind Nebula and Curiosity Stream. I don't know them. Oh, Okay, this is my final thing. Sorry. I also had to turn. So this was also painful. I was very excited because when we talk about sponsorships, like recurring sponsorships, a lot of YouTubers have those now. I was really excited because I was in very like I was almost finalizing talks with the VR optician company. I'm not gonna name who. Sorry. But sorry. But yeah, they were gonna pay me to do like 30 seconds at the beginning of every video, and it was just gonna be like a very nice income so I can go to events and stuff, right? And it wasn't even like I wasn't asking much per video, but it just was a nice little thing to have per video. But I had to turn it down at the last minute because their lenses actually just did not work for my wife, who she has very we gave them all the prescriptions for everything and they weren't working well. In fact, it was better for her to wear her glasses in the headset than it was to use these lenses. And they were like, "Oh, please, please, please! It'd be so great if you can still push our hardware in your videos and stuff." Like they were really wanting me to do it, but if it's not working, I can't push your stuff, you know? So it's like, man, you constantly are bombarded as like a small creator. You have to make business decisions. You have to do all this work. You have to keep moral high ground. Like it's crazy, guys. It's crazy. Yeah. Yes. All right. One more VR question. Let's see. You've spoken about displays time and time again, but when will we see a boom in chipsets for handling things like realistic face scan, nurse ray tracing, etc.? I don't think chips are the issue too much for VR, actually. I never talk about chips when it comes to XR because first of all, I'm not very I don't watch the silicon stuff much, but from what I do see, it seems like it's just a problem that is always solving itself. Like even though Moore's law is like slowing down for the most part, there's still like every company knows, every company still knows what they're gonna get 2 years from now when it comes to chips. And the big thing that we're seeing mostly with chips is for XR headsets is people are realizing we can make specialized chips that can do different tasks for XR headsets. For example, Meta's shown off that one chip that was designed on 7 nanometer, specifically designed for codec avatars. They're super realistic avatars to render that. That's a very simple concept, and that's very useful for XR. It's the same concept of like having chips offload camera sensors and everything. Like that stuff is already kind of happening. Is there going to be like a huge revelation or of a big change? I don't think so. I really don't think so. But yeah. Thank you, mods. I always focus on displays and lenses because I think that's where the most obvious changes are going to happen for XR devices. Displays and lenses are so big compared to everything else, I think, for hardware. Because everything else can be done via software still. Everything else can be improved via software, including rendering. And we're seeing that with stuff like application space warp and like tons of other reprojection technologies being worked on. So make this weekly? Would I want to make this weekly? Maybe we'll start with bi-weekly, or was that twice a month? Bi-monthly? Yeah. I think maybe twice a month. I can try twice a month, I think. Generally the way I always kind of did this was, yeah, I'll figure it out. Anyway, that's it for now. I always like doing these long streams because they're kind of like how the reason why I like these articles, especially compared to doing videos, which even though I will probably still turn some of these article concepts into videos afterwards, is like, could you imagine me trying to summarize this entire article in a video without messing anything up? I don't think anyone can. But with live streams, they're way easier to do that if I wanted to, because people can ask me questions and I can go deep into that question. When I upload a video, it usually wants to be a certain period of time. And if I mess up in that video, the only thing I do is reply to comments or stuff. I can't change the video. I can't update a video like an article. It's kind of like videos are annoying in that format, but I do like doing videos still when I have time. Yeah. Yep. Anyway, when do you think VR will be mainstream? Depends what your opinion of mainstream is. I give it 2 years before. I really think next year is gonna be a big year, guys. It was supposed to be. I think it was supposed to be big at the end of this year, but I think that was moved due to all the lockdowns. I think next year. Again, I think people are gonna be talking about VR a lot next year. Like, I think it's gonna be your grandparents. I think your grandparents are gonna be like, that VR thing. Whoa, I saw some stuff on that television about a VR device. That's crazy. I think next year is gonna really be a like a lot of topics. It's gonna be much bigger. But yeah, again, I don't think it's gonna be like smartphones. For a few years, like smartphone growth, like the first smartphone growth. That's probably still a couple years away, but I think I think a lot more common people are gonna be talking about these devices next year because they're gonna make a lot more sense. All people have been seeing about for the past 6 years is this giant bulky thing that people cannot imagine themselves wearing. The everyday person could not imagine themselves wearing this thing ever. And then when they do put it on, they're impressed. Don't get me wrong, they're very impressed, but I mean, there's a lot of optical difficulties, so. Bradley, I remember when VR was gonna be huge in the mid 90s. Well, the mid 90s. I mean, there's a lot of progresses that has happened since the mid 90s. There are, don't get me wrong, there's still issues that. Let me just leave it at this. I don't think a company, and I know I always talk about Apple and like you say what you want about Apple, but like before the Apple Watch, smartwatches were pretty niche still. Um, Before the AirPods or whatever, Bluetooth headphones were pretty niche. Um, and I know that puts a lot of responsibility on Apple, but like in general, I just think a company like that who releases a device no matter how good it is, that just gets traction and provides value for all of us who want these technologies to get better. So, yes. Yep, yep, yep. Yep, yep, yep. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye.